Enterprise program management is one of the most critical aspects of an effective digital transformation, but it's also one of the most overlooked. What exactly is ePMO? That's what we're going to talk about here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world reach the third stage of digital transformation success. And we're helping clients get ready for and execute their digital transformations. Establishing an enterprise PMO is one of the most important things that they can do. It's a way for an organization to have control and ownership of a project, to make sure they're looking at the complete overall program, not just the technical aspects of the program. And it's a way to make sure you're managing your outside vendors as well. So what I want to do today is talk about what an ePMO is, why it's so important, and how you can establish one for your organization. Before we dive too far into today's content, I want to share a little bit of information about Third Stage Consulting and who we are. Third Stage Consulting Group is an independent technology agnostic provider of consulting services to help clients through their digital transformations. We help with digital strategy and software selection, as well as implementation planning. And during implementation, we provide services related to program management, organizational change, business process improvement, as well as enterprise architecture. These are just some of the services we provide. We have offices in North America as well as Europe and Asia Pacific. So if you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to check out our resource center, which includes a number of resources that will help you through your digital transformation, and you can access that for free using the QR code here or the links below. You can also reach out to me directly if you'd like to discuss your digital transformation and brainstorm ideas on how to improve where you're headed on your journey. Now let's jump back into today's content. Let's talk about the importance of ePMO, but before I do that, let's talk about what an ePMO really is. ePMO stands for Enterprise Program Management Office. And a lot of you may have heard the term PMO, which is Program Management Office, and we just added an E to it to emphasize the fact that it's enterprise-wide. We're looking at an enterprise-wide digital transformation, and therefore we're looking at an enterprise PMO. Now, the reason that ePMO is so important comes down to three things. It comes down to control, ownership, and alignment, and I want to talk about each of those three things. First of all, control. Every organization needs to have control of their project. And I don't say this in a draconian way of you don't need to collaborate with others and you don't need to listen to other people. You just need to have complete control and ignore all outside voices. That's not what I'm suggesting. But what I am suggesting is that this is your digital transformation. If you're the organization that's going through the digital transformation, you need to own it. Yes, you're going to have software vendors and other vendors that are going to help you through the process, but someone needs to manage this almost as like a general contractor. So this gives you an opportunity to have control of the project as well as ownership, which is the second benefit. Every organization needs to have internal stakeholders and executives and mid-level managers and even frontline employees that are engaged and involved in owning the project rather than completely outsourcing to an external third party. And then lastly, alignment. Every organization needs to have internal alignment or else they're going to face headwinds along the way. The best way to get alignment is to have this ePMO in place so that you can identify risks and you can get everyone on the same page and work through the misalignments as they arise, which is highly common in these projects, but you need to have a mechanism to deal with it. So this is why ePMO is so important, and what I want to do in the rest of this video is describe what an ePMO is in a bit more detail, as well as how you can establish one for your organization. Now, some of you may be wondering, what is program management and how is that different from project management, which most of you have probably heard the term project management. And the way to think about this is project management is managing a project within a broader program. So when you're looking at a digital transformation, typically you're talking about one, if not more than one technology. But in addition to technology, you're talking about other work streams that don't have anything to do with the technology. You have process improvements, you have change management, you have architecture, integration, data migration, all these different things that need to happen during an overall program, and each one of those work streams is likely to have a project management component. So for example, if you hire a software vendor to provide your ERP software or enterprise technology to enable your digital transformation, they're probably going to provide you with a project manager that knows the technology really well. But that project manager is not the same as program manager. Someone needs to manage the overall program, which would include that project manager, as well as project managers of other technologies, project managers of other work streams within the program. So that's probably the best way to think about how project management is different from enterprise PMO. Now, if you'd like to learn more about this concept, I actually have a whole 20-minute whiteboard video where I dive into this concept of what program management is and how it's different from project management, you can watch that video by clicking the link right here. This is a video I published a couple months ago that goes into that topic in more detail. So what are the major components of an ePMO? That's what we'll talk about here now. First is project governance and controls. You need to make sure that you've defined sort of that playbook, that high-level parameter and guardrail for how the project is going to run, how the overall program is going to run. So having governance and controls in place is very important. This includes things like how decisions will be made, what threshold of decision can be made at the lower level of the project team versus the project manager versus the project sponsor versus the whole executive steering committee versus maybe the CEO. There's different layers of governance and controls that need to be in place, and we need to be clear early on what that is so that we don't get hung up with spinning our wheels trying to figure out how to make decisions. In addition to program governance and controls, we need to have an integrated program plan. Your software vendor or vendors might provide you with a project plan for their individual work stream, but we've got to tie together all these other project plans into a complete program to include things like our change strategy and plan, our architecture decommissioning strategy and plan, or integration plan, data migration plan, process improvement plan. All that stuff needs to fit into an overall program. And so that integrated program plan is another key component of an ePMO, and that typically resides within the ePMO's responsibility. We also have risk management and mitigation. So how do we identify risks? How do we mitigate those risks? And how do we ensure that we're constantly staying ahead of where the risks are, knowing that there's going to be risks starting from day one all the way through our complete transformation? We can't hide from those risks. They exist. It's just a matter of how fast we identify them and how quickly we proactively address them. There's also quality assurance. How do we ensure that we're not only checking a checkbox to say, yes, we completed a deliverable, but more qualitatively and subjectively, have we completed that deliverable to the satisfaction of our business needs and priorities? Those are two very different things. And if you're a project manager, the mentality might be either we completed it or we didn't. But a true program manager is going to look at that and say, well, yes, we completed it, but we didn't complete it well, and maybe we need some other iterations of that particular deliverable. And then finally, change management. Organizational change management should be a key component and a key subset of the ePMO. Now, you might view organizational change as its own separate work stream, and it oftentimes is, but you want to make sure that the change management team, at least the change leader, has a seat at the table of the overall ePMO, because the human aspect of these sorts of programs is typically the most risky, the most difficult, and the thing that's most likely to disrupt the progress of a project like this. So the next question becomes, how do we establish this ePMO? I mentioned some of the major components of an ePMO and some of the differences between program management and project management, but how do we establish this? Well, first of all, it's important to recognize and reiterate that it's critical that this ePMO reside within your organization, not your software vendor, not your outside consultants. It needs to be centered within your organization. Now, you can certainly hire companies like mine, Third Stage Consulting. We're independent, tech agnostic. We help clients establish and execute their ePMO all the time, but at the end of the day, they still own it. We'll advise them on how to manage it. We'll help them identify risks. We'll help them create that comprehensive governance and controls and the integrated program plan, all that stuff we talked about so far here today. But at the end of the day, the client owns it. The customer owns the ePMO. So that PMO needs to reside within your organization. And certainly you're going to draw on other internal and external resources to complete the overall program. You're going to have your software vendor that provides the technology. You'll have the technology wrench turners, as we call them, the people that are actually doing the coding and the configuration of the software, the integration of the software. You'll have your change managers, your change management team that might be outside consultants combined with internal people. You might have outside architects and data migration specialists. You might have PMO support through a company like Third Stage. So we provide services around all these different components that I'm talking about here today, but at the end of the day, it all reports up to the internal ePMO. And ultimately, even when we're helping a client with ePMO and we're responsible for managing the ePMO, we're really an extension of the client's project team, their overall PMO. So I hope this has given you some guidance and understanding of what an ePMO is, how it's different from project management, and how you can establish one within your organization. If you'd like to chat more about how to establish this ePMO concept within your organization, I'd love to be an informal sounding board for you. Feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to have an informal conversation with you to discuss, brainstorm ideas. I've included my contact information below on the screen in front of you, or you can go to the links below. I've included my email address down below in the description field. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day.